List is a built-in data structure available in Python to store multiple data inside our program. In this video, we will learn everything about list and how to create a list and how we can perform certain operation on list. Let's get into the computer screen and let's get started. Now I am inside my VS Code and I want to create a Python file here. So for that, I will click here new file and give the name as tutorial 31 underscore list.py and then hit enter. Then you can see the file is created. Let's say you want to store 5 numbers inside your program. Then how you can do that? You need to create 5 variable to store 5 values or 5 numbers. Okay, like that I can create num1 equals to, suppose I want to store 10, and num2 I want to store suppose 20, and num3 I want to store suppose 30, and then num4 and I want to store here suppose 40, and num5 and I want to store here suppose 50. Okay, so in this way I can store 5 numbers inside 5 variables. Okay, but here if we use list, then we can do that in a single variable. So let me show you how to create a list in Python. Okay, so to create a list I need to provide some name. That means I need to give a variable name, suppose numbers. Okay, numbers. So this is my list name, and to create a list I need to write square bracket. Okay, so inside square bracket I need to mention all the values. Okay, so now this is a empty list. Okay, so this is a empty list. The here this numbers is the variable name, and here this empty square bracket is a empty list. Now I want to store all these numbers inside this list. So to store these numbers I need to write here 10, then comma 20, comma 30, comma 40, comma 50. Okay, now you can see it is a list. Okay, so here we are storing numbers like 10, 20, 30, 40 and separated with comma. Okay, so now you can see all these numbers or all these values are stored inside a single variable. Okay, now if I print here the type of this variable, that is numbers, then you can see what will be the result. If I print this file, then you can see it is printing class list. That means it is a list. Okay, so in this way you can create list in Python. Okay, so this is the syntax of creating list. So let me clear the terminal, and if I directly print this variable, then what happens? Let's see. Let me comment this previous print statement, and I will write another print statement here, and inside it I want to print simply the list, that means numbers. Now if I run this file, then you can see it will print the entire list. Okay, so we can create a character list also. I'll write here char, and I want to create a list having character value. Okay, so I'll write here a, and then I'll write here b, and then c. Okay, so now this is a character list. Okay, all the values are character. So now if I print the value of char, that is the list, and now if I run this file, then you can see it will print simply the list. Okay, we can store multiple type of data inside a list also. So let me clear the terminal, and let me comment all these things, and I will show you a mixed type of list. Okay, so I'll write here suppose mixed. Okay, mixed, and inside it I want to write 1 2 3. Okay, so I can store numbers along with character also. I will write here a and b. Okay, so this is a valid list. Or if I want to store a list inside a list, then that is also valid. I can write here a list inside another list, that is a list of suppose numbers 1 2 3. Okay, then you can see these are the elements. This is a element, this is another element, this is another element, this is another element. Okay, and this list is also a element of the bigger list. Okay, so now if I print the value of mixed, then you can see, if I run this file, then you can see the result. It will print the entire list. Okay, so we can add two lists also. If I create a list 1, okay, lst1, and I will store here suppose 1 2 and 3, and I will create another list having list 2 having the elements suppose 5 6 7. And now if I write a print function, and inside print function I will do addition of these two lists, that means lst1 plus lst2. If I run this file, then you can see what happens. Then you can see it is simply adding two lists. Okay, so that means this all the elements are merged into a single list. So I will write a print function here, and inside print function I will multiply a number with a list. Okay, let's say I take the list 1, that is lst1, and I will multiply this list 1 with suppose 5. Okay, so let me comment the previous print statement, and now if I run this file, then you can see what happens. Then you can see it is multiplying the list. That means see, in the first list, that is in list 1, there are 3 elements, that is 1 2 3. Then you can see 1 2 3, and then 1 2 3 again, 1 2 3 again, 1 2 3 again, 1 2 3. That means it will simple add this list 1 itself 5 times. List support indexing, that means we can access element using their index. Okay, and the list first index is 0, that means the index start from 0 in list. So I will create a list here, and I'll take the elements as a and b and then c and then d. Okay, so now you can see this is a list, and this list having 4 elements, and the first element is at the index number 0. Okay, that means the list index start from 0. So this is having 0 index, and this b having 1 index, and this c having 2 index, and this d having 3 index. Okay, so now I can access all the elements using their index. Okay, so I will write here suppose a print function, and inside print function I will print whatever present in the index number 0. Okay, so for that I will write the name of the list, and I will open a pair of square bracket, and inside that I will mention the index. Suppose I want to print the index number 0. Okay, so now if I run this file, then you can see it is printing a. That means in index number 0 the value is present is a. So similarly, if I write here instead of 0, if I write here 2, and now if I run this file, then you can see it will print c, because c is present in the index number 2. Okay, so let me clear the terminal, and I will show you another thing here. So the list is a iterable object. Okay, so list is a iterable object, that means we can iterate over a loop. Okay, so for that I will write a for loop here. So I will write for, and I will write here suppose items. Okay, or item. Okay, so for item in lst, that means we need to specify here a iterable object. So this list is a iterable object, so that's why I have written here for item in list, and then I want to print item. Okay, so now if I run this file, then you can see it will print all the elements present inside the list. Okay, so in this way you can iterate over a list, or you can traverse a list. You can use range function also here. If I write here for I in range. Okay, so inside range function I need to specify the length of the list. Okay, so how can we find the length of the list? So there is a built-in function available in Python, that is len function. I will write here len, and inside len I will pass the list. Okay, so now it will calculate the length of the list. So now I will print here. Here you can see this range is a iterable function. So first it will start from 0, that means this I having value 0. So now I will print here whatever present at the index number 0. So for that I will write here the name of the list lst, and open a square bracket, and inside it I will mention I. Okay, so let me comment the previous for loop. And now if I run this file, okay, let me clear the terminal first. Now if I run this file, then you can see it will print all the elements present inside the list. Okay, if I want to modify an existing element in list, then I can do that. Okay, because lists are mutable, so that's why we can modify any element of a list. So if I want to modify the list, the element which is present at the index number 0, that means I will write here lst of 0. Okay, so this means it will access the 0th index element. Okay, so now I want to change it from a to suppose 10. Okay, so now if I print the value of lst, that means the list, then you can see, if I run this file, then you can see the result. Then you can see in place of a, it is replaced with 10. Okay, so you can change any element of a list because lists are mutable. So let's see how we can unpack a list. Okay, so let's say I have a list having numbers 10 and 20, 30 and 40 and 50. So now you can see this is a list. Okay, so I want to unpack this list. Okay, so for that I want to store the first element in a separate variable and the second element in another variable and the third element in another variable. Okay, so I want to unpack the entire list. So for that I will create here, suppose norm1 variable and norm2 and norm3. Okay, and norm4 and norm5. So now you can see I have created 5 variables and I want to store the 5 values inside these 5 variable. Okay, so for that I just here I will write equals to the list name lst. Okay, so it will automatically assign each value to each corresponding variable. Okay, so now if I print here, now if I print norm1, okay, and norm2 and norm3 and norm4 and norm5, then you can see the result. If I run this file, then you can see it will print 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, so this is called as list unpacking. Okay, so this is known as list unpacking. So let me clear the terminal. Let's say I want to store only these two elements inside two variable and rest of the elements inside another variable. Okay, then I can do that also. Let me comment this line, this two line, and I will write here, suppose I will write here norm1 comma norm2, and I want to store the rest of the elements inside another variable. Suppose I will take that variable name as norms. Okay, then I need to write here lst. Then you can see if I run this file, then what happens. Now if I run this file, then you can see what happens. Then you can see error is coming, that means value error, too many values to unpack. So here the value, that means the number of values are greater than the number of variables. Okay, so that's why it could not unpack the list. So how we can do that? If I want to store the rest of the elements inside this variable and first and second elements inside these two variable. Okay, so for that we need to just write here a star. Okay, so you need to mention a star symbol before this variable name. Now if I run this file, then you can see the result. Let me clear the terminal first, and now I will print here, I will print suppose norm1, and I will write here another print function, and inside that I will print norms variable. Okay, this norms variable. Now if I run this file, then you can see what happens. Then you can see norm1 is the first element, you can see here 10, so that's why it is printing here 10. And then I have written here norms, so norms means rest of the things, that means 30, 40, 50. You can see here 30, 40, 50. That means here this norm variable is another list, and the rest of the elements are stored inside this norm variable. Okay, so this is the syntax. You need to just specify a star or asterisk symbol before the variable name. Okay, If I want to create a list having element from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20, or means a sequence of elements or sequence of numbers, then instead of writing it manually, I can use range function here. So I'll show you. If I write here suppose lst, and I will store the value from 1 to suppose 10. Okay, so I will write here a range function, and here I will mention the value as 10. That means it will start from 0 and goes till 9. Okay, so now I want to use all these numbers in into a list. That means I want to convert all these numbers into a list. So for that, there is a built-in function available in Python, that is list function. I need to specify here list. Okay, list function, and I need to wrap up this range function inside this list function. Okay, so now you can see here, this is the range function, and I am writing this range function inside this list function. Okay, so now if I print the value of list, that is the list, now if I run this file, then you can see it is printing the entire list, and the elements start from 0 and goes till 9. Okay, so using range function and this built-in function, that is list function, you can create a list also. So instead of range function, you can pass any iterable function here or any iterable object here. Okay, so you can pass here a string also. Let me show you. If I write here lst equals to, I will write here a list function, sorry, list function, and inside list function I will pass a string here. Okay, so let's say I will write here coding and then things. Now if I print the value of lst, then you can see the result. If I print here, then you can see it will create a list of character. Okay, whatever string I have written here, it will create a list of that characters. Okay, so it will collect all the characters and make a list. So you can pass any iterable object inside this list function. This is it for now. We will continue from this onwards in our next video. Thank you for watching this video.